The billionaire was already boarding his private jet when his 10-year-old daughter sprinted barefoot across the tarmac, screaming, "Daddy, don't get on that plane. She's going to kill you." The flight crew froze. So did Jackson Carter. Behind him, his glamorous wife, Vanessa, smiled coldly and tightened her grip on her designer handbag, the one hiding a loaded gun. In Gabriella's trembling hands was a tablet. On the screen, a video no one was ever meant to see. And in the sky above them, their death was already waiting. The California sun beat down on the private runway, reflecting off the polished body of the Carter Air jet like a warning flare. The plane, a gleaming custom Gulfstream, stood at the ready, its engines humming softly as the crew performed final checks. Everything was perfectly timed, perfectly planned. Jackson Carter, billionaire founder of Carter Air, walked toward the plane hand in hand with his wife, Vanessa Carter. Tall, poised, and immaculate in designer white, Vanessa smiled like someone who had everything, because she did. She had the name, the fortune, the empire, and she had the man. They had been married for less than a year. After the tragic death of Jackson's first wife, Elena, the mother of his daughter Gabriella, the world watched as Jackson slowly emerged from grief into the arms of the elegant Vanessa. Their whirlwind courtship and quiet wedding were the stuff of headlines. But the press never saw what 10-year-old Gabriella Carter saw. From behind the security fence, barefoot and wild-eyed, Gabby sprinted across the tarmac, a tablet clutched to her chest. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop, not when the love of her life, her only parent left, was walking straight into a trap. "Daddy, wait, please don't go." Jackson turned just as Gabby stumbled onto the tarmac, security guards shouting behind her. His expression shifted from confusion to alarm in an instant. "Gabby, what are you doing out here?" he said, rushing toward her. She crashed into him, breathless, tears streaking her dusty cheeks. "You can't get on that plane. You can't," she sobbed, thrusting the tablet toward him. Vanessa, she did something to it. I saw her. I filmed it. She's going to crash it and kill you." Jackson's blood ran cold. He looked down at his daughter, the girl who hadn't lied to him once in 10 years. The girl who still talked to her mother's photo every night before bed. The girl who never wanted Vanessa around to begin with. Behind them, Vanessa approached slowly. Her heels clicked lightly on the concrete. "She's confused, Jackson," Vanessa said calmly. "She hasn't been the same since Elena passed. She's been imagining things, acting out. We need to get her help." But Jackson didn't move. He tapped the screen on Gabby's tablet. A shaky video began to play. Night vision, a quiet hangar, Vanessa's unmistakable silhouette kneeling by the aircraft. She removed a panel, reached inside, swapped a component. Her face turned toward the camera, briefly, clearly. There was no mistaking her. Gabby's voice whispered from behind the camera in the video. "She's breaking the plane. She's going to hurt him." Jackson looked up, stunned. Vanessa's face didn't flinch. Instead, she slowly reached into her sleek designer handbag. "I really hoped I wouldn't have to do this," she said, almost with regret. Then she pulled out a black pistol and aimed it at them. Gabby screamed. Jackson pulled her behind him, instinctively shielding her. "Walk," Vanessa said, her voice cool and controlled. "Onto the plane. Now!" The flight crew froze. One of the pilots tried to reach for his radio. Vanessa flicked the gun toward him. "No heroes, just a tragic accident waiting to happen. Let's not drag this out." Jackson stared at her, his voice like steel. "Why?" Vanessa tilted her head. "Because I'm tired of pretending. I married a broken man, and now I inherit an empire. It's that simple." Gabby clung to Jackson's arm. Her body shook, but her voice didn't. "She's going to kill us, Daddy." Jackson's world was falling out from under him, but he nodded. "I know, sweetheart." Together, father and daughter walked up the steps into the jet. Behind them, Vanessa followed with the gun pointed high, expression unbothered, cold as ice. As the cabin doors sealed shut and the engines whined louder, Gabby whispered, "If we take off, we won't come back." And Jackson, eyes fixed forward, realized his daughter was right. Inside the jet, everything looked just as it should. Sleek leather, seats, gleaming wood panels, and silent efficiency. But beneath the surface, there was a hum of panic. The air felt too still, too heavy. Jackson guided Gabriella to one of the plush seats, never taking his eyes off Vanessa, who stepped in behind them with the gun still discreetly in her hand. The door sealed with a hiss. The engines roared to life. The flight crew was gone. Vanessa had dismissed them before takeoff. She only needed one pilot, her accomplice. Gabby clutched her father's hand tightly. Her entire body was trembling, but her voice was steady as she leaned close and whispered, "We have to do something." Jackson squeezed her hand in return. "I know," he said, barely above a breath. "Just stay calm. Let me think." Vanessa moved to the cockpit, locked the cabin from the inside, and gave a short command through the intercom. "Take off. No delays." Then she turned back to face them. She smiled like they were all just heading to Aspen for a quiet ski weekend. "Don't look so tense," she said, waving the pistol lazily. "We'll be cruising at 30,000 feet in no time. Try to enjoy what little's left." "You're not going to get away with this," Jackson said, his jaw tight. "The moment we miss check-in, the FAA will track the jet. My board, my attorneys." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Jackson, sweetheart, who do you think wrote the flight plan? This trip was registered as private, no tracking requested, and that was your signature on the form, by the way. I made sure of it." Gabby's voice cut in suddenly. "You're not going to get away with it because I sent the video. I sent it before you made us board." That made Vanessa pause. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty passed over her perfectly composed face. "To who?" she asked sharply. "I don't have to tell you," Gabby snapped. "But if something happens to us, everyone will know what you did." Vanessa's knuckles whitened around the gun, but she didn't reply. She turned and walked toward the front again, locking the cockpit behind her. Gabby looked up at her father. "I really did send it," she whispered, "to Mom's sister. And the cloud, it's backed up." Jackson pulled her into a tight hug. "You're incredible," he said softly, heart thudding with a mix of pride and terror. "But we're still on this plane," Gabby said, "and she's going to crash it." The jet shuddered slightly as it lifted off the ground. The blue sky rushed up around them, clouds parting like curtains. The world below grew smaller. Jackson moved quickly now, searching the cabin with his eyes. There was a first aid kit behind a panel, a small fire extinguisher under one of the seats, and, if he remembered correctly, a hidden emergency radio in the pilot's galley. He stood slowly, testing Vanessa's reaction through the small glass panel in the cockpit door. She didn't move. "I'm going to try something," he said to Gabby. "Stay low. Don't speak unless you have to." He crossed to the galley, crouched, and lifted the floor panel. Beneath it was the emergency transceiver. He powered it up, whispering coordinates and phrases from memory. Static. Then a voice crackled back. "This is Captain Rhodes. Who is this?" Jackson's voice shook. "It's Jackson Carter. I'm aboard my own jet. It's been hijacked by my wife. My daughter and I are on board. We're in the air. She plans to crash it." There was a pause. "Roger that. I'm alerting NORAD and FAA. Keep the signal open." Before Jackson could respond, the cockpit door flung open. Vanessa stood there. Her smile was gone. She raised the gun and fired. The radio exploded in sparks beside him. Jackson staggered back, clutching his side, blood already soaking into his shirt. Gabby screamed. Vanessa stepped forward, eyes wild now, voice cold and shaking. "You just had to ruin everything. I tried to be clean. I tried to make this painless." Gabby stood between her father and Vanessa, defiant. "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be," Vanessa whispered, but she hesitated, just long enough. Jackson, despite the pain, surged forward and knocked the pistol away. It slid across the floor, stopping near the cockpit. Vanessa screamed in rage and ran toward it. Gabby didn't think. She ran faster. And for the first time in her life, she beat an adult to the finish line. She kicked the gun beneath the pilot's seat and slammed the cockpit door shut from the inside. Now it was just her. The injured pilot looked over at her with wide, stunned eyes. Gabby stared at the controls. "I need to fly this plane," she said. And then she reached for the headset. The cockpit was filled with blinking lights, switches, and screens that meant nothing to most 10-year-olds. But Gabriella Carter wasn't just any 10-year-old. She had grown up flying in private jets, listening to her father's pilots chat on the comms, and sitting on his lap while he explained what every button did, half joking, never expecting she'd ever need to remember it. Now those quiet memories were the only thing standing between survival and disaster. She slid into the co-pilot seat as the injured pilot groaned beside her, blood seeping from a deep wound in his side. He tried to turn toward her, but couldn't. "Don't move," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "I locked the cabin. She's outside. She's trying to get in." The pounding on the cockpit door had already begun. Vanessa screamed threats through the metal, her voice muffled but terrifying. "Open this door right now, Gabby. I swear to God." Gabby ignored it. She fumbled for the headset, adjusted it over her ears, and remembered what her dad had told her during one of their pretend flights. "If something ever goes wrong, press this, say your name, and say Mayday." She pressed the button. Her hand was shaking. This is Gabriella Carter," she said into the mic. "I'm 10 years old. My dad's hurt. The pilot's hurt. My stepmom tried to crash the plane, and I locked her out. I don't know how to fly. Please help us." Static. Then a calm voice broke through. "Gabriella, this is air traffic control out of Denver Center. We read you. You're doing very well. We're going to help you. Just stay calm." Gabby blinked back tears. Okay. I'm calm." Outside the cockpit, the pounding stopped. Silence. Then the intercom crackled to life. Vanessa's voice, cold and deliberate, echoed through the plane. "Gabby, sweetheart, if you don't open this door, I'll shoot the lock. And if that doesn't work, I'll blow the emergency hatch. That means everyone gets sucked out, including you and Daddy." Gabby gritted her teeth and turned off the cabin intercom switch. "She's lying," she whispered, praying it was true. The voice in her headset spoke again. "Gabriella, we've alerted NORAD and emergency response. 2 fighter jets are now being scrambled to your location, but we need to keep you steady until then. Do you see your altitude indicator?" Gabby scanned the dials. The circle with the blue and brown? That's the one. You're flying level. Now we're going to guide you toward an emergency landing strip in Colorado, but you'll need to bring the plane down yourself." Gabby's heart nearly stopped. I've never landed a plane." "You don't need to land it perfectly. You just need to get it close. We'll talk you through everything. Can you do that, Gabriella?" She looked over at the injured pilot, who gave her a weak thumbs up. Then she looked down at her own small hands gripping the yoke. "I can try." Outside, Vanessa was doing more than trying. She had already begun prying open the emergency panel under the galley sink where manual tools were stored. She had found a small axe. With a manic grin, she headed back toward the cockpit door. Inside, Gabby focused on every instruction from the calm voice on the other end of the radio. "Lower your altitude by 1,000 feet. Slowly. Keep the wings level." She adjusted the throttle and watched the screen shift. The plane jolted but steadied. Her stomach flipped, but she didn't panic. "Good, Gabriella. You're doing great. Keep talking to us." Vanessa slammed the axe into the cockpit door. The sound was thunderous. Jackson stirred behind her, groaning. Gabby turned her head. "Daddy?" His eyes fluttered open. He looked pale, soaked in blood, but alive. "You're flying," he murmured, dazed. "Don't move," she whispered. "I'm going to get us home." Vanessa screamed again, slamming the axe harder. The door began to dent. The voice in her ear was calm but faster now. "You're coming up on the mountain range. You need to begin your descent, right now. Do you see the flaps lever?" She located it, hands slick with sweat. "Pull it halfway, don't jerk it." "That's it." The plane dipped. Alarms began to beep. "I'm losing control," she cried. "No, you're not. Trust the plane. Trust yourself." The cockpit door cracked. The lock was buckling. Gabby gritted her teeth and pulled the yoke gently toward her. The plane began to level out, engines roaring louder as the descent began. Outside the cockpit, Vanessa screamed in frustration. Inside, Gabby Carter, 10 years old, scared, exhausted, and completely alone at the controls, took a breath, steadied her grip, and began the impossible. The nose of the jet sliced through the sky, descending steadily through wisps of cloud as the Rocky. Mountains loomed in the distance like a wall of stone. The aircraft shuddered, buffeted by rising turbulence. But Gabriella's grip on the controls didn't falter. Her arms ached, her palms burned with tension, but she refused to let go. The voice from air traffic control spoke steadily in her ears, anchoring her to reality. "Gabriella, you're doing excellent. We've cleared an emergency runway at Eagle County Regional Airport. It's in visual range now. Look out the left window. You should see it soon." Gabby shifted in her seat, blinking sweat from her eyes. Her breath hitched. "I see it. It's small. It's enough. the voice replied calmly. Just follow my instructions and you'll bring her in safely. Behind her, her father stirred again, groaning. Jackson's face was pale, his shirt soaked with blood, but his eyes met hers. You're flying this thing, he rasped. She gave him a brief, trembling smile. Yeah, sort of learning as I go. Before he could respond, there was a violent bang. Metal cracked. The cockpit door buckled inward. Gabby turned just in time to see Vanessa's bloodied hands gripping the axe as she threw her entire body against the door. One hinge popped with a deafening screech. She's getting in, Gabby shouted into the headset. Focus on the landing, the controller said. Keep your eyes forward. You're almost there. Stay steady, Gabriella. The runway came into full view now. Thin, narrow, a gray strip carved into the mountainside. The jet was too high, too fast. She'd have one chance. Her heart slammed in her chest as she adjusted the throttle, pulling back slightly to slow descent. The flaps deployed. The plane groaned beneath her. Then, crash. The top hinge of the door tore free, and Vanessa's face appeared, wild with rage and sweat. She crawled into the cockpit like a monster from a nightmare. You little brat, she shrieked. You think you're going to ruin everything? Gabby didn't flinch. One hand on the controls, she grabbed the headset wire and yanked it free, wrapping it around Vanessa's arm as she lunged forward. They struggled. Vanessa's hand reached for the yoke. No! Gabby shouted. Jackson moved, weak, bleeding, but alive. He reached from the floor and grabbed Vanessa's ankle, pulling hard. She screamed, stumbled backward, and slammed her head against the bulkhead. She dropped, unconscious. Gabby was gasping, shaking all over. She glanced back once, saw her father's blood-stained hand still clutching the floor, then turned back to the window. The runway was seconds away. Mayday, this is Gabriella Carter. Final approach. I'm going in. Copy that, Gabriella. You're cleared to land. Cut throttle now. Ease the nose up slightly. She followed each word like scripture. Her fingers moved with trembling focus. The wheels slammed the runway. Hard. The jet bounced once, twice. Then the brakes screamed. The aircraft skidded down the narrow strip, smoke billowing from the tires, wings shuddering with resistance. Then silence. The jet rolled to a stop. Gabriella couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She had done it. Her vision blurred. For a moment she thought she might pass out, but then she felt her father's hand touch her shoulder. You did it, Gabs, he whispered. You really did it. And with that, she let the tears come. The cockpit door hung broken behind her. Vanessa lay unconscious. Outside, emergency vehicles raced toward the plane. Sirens, lights, life. Gabriella Carter, 10 years old, had saved her father and landed a plane. The emergency crews swarmed the runway within seconds of the jet's complete stop. Bright lights cut through the mountain dusk, illuminating the thick smoke still trailing from the landing gear. Firefighters with extinguishers circled the aircraft, while paramedics sprinted up the stairs with stretchers and trauma kits. Inside the jet, Gabriella sat frozen in the pilot's seat. Her small fingers still clutched the yoke, her body locked in the same position it had been during the final approach. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. She didn't even notice the tear streaks running down her face. She only looked up when one of the emergency responders touched her shoulder and gently said, "It's okay now. You're safe. You did it." Gabby turned slowly and pointed to the back of the cockpit. "My dad, he's hurt. He was shot." The medic nodded. "We've got him." As she was helped down from the chair, 2 paramedics rushed to Jackson, checking his vitals. One of them pressed gauze to his wound while the other prepared a blood transfusion. Jackson's face was pale, his lips dry, but his eyes opened as they lifted him onto the stretcher. "Where's Gabby?" he mumbled weakly. "I'm here, Daddy," she whispered, standing at the edge of the cockpit doorway. He managed a faint smile through the pain. "You're my hero." A lump caught in Gabby's throat. "Don't say that. Just don't die." "I won't," he said hoarsely. "Not after what you just did." Vanessa was still unconscious in the main cabin, sprawled beside the torn cockpit door. Her designer blouse was stained with her own blood from the head wound she'd gotten in the struggle. 2 officers handcuffed her as paramedics stabilized her condition. Her gun, which had skidded across the floor, was now sealed in an evidence bag. As Jackson was wheeled out of the jet and Gabby followed at his side, a crowd of first responders stepped back to let them through. But it wasn't just medics and firemen waiting. There were reporters now, too, local news crews who had caught the emergency radio transmissions. Cameras clicked. Boom mics leaned in. Someone shouted, "Did the girl really land the plane?" Another yelled, "Is it true the wife tried to crash the jet?" Gabby flinched at the noise, trying to shield her face. But then a strong arm wrapped around her shoulder. Captain Rhodes, her father's most trusted pilot, and the man who had guided her voice through the radio, stood beside her. "She doesn't need questions," he said firmly. "She needs space." They led her to the ambulance. Jackson was inside, pale and hooked to IVs, but alive. Gabby climbed in after him and took his hand. It was still warm. That was all she needed. The ride to the hospital was silent. Gabby didn't cry anymore. She just sat there holding his hand, staring out the window at the sky. 2 hours later, while Jackson was in surgery and Gabby waited in a quiet room with a blanket around her shoulders, two detectives came in to speak with her. Their voices were calm, respectful, but direct. They asked about the video. She told them everything, what she saw, how she recorded it, how Vanessa had forced them onto the plane at gunpoint. The lead detective, a tall woman with kind eyes, looked at her with a mix of awe and disbelief. "You knew something was wrong," she said, "and you were the only one who acted." Gabby didn't smile. "No one believed me. If I hadn't filmed it, we'd both be dead." The detective nodded. "Well, you saved his life. And yours. That makes you a hero." Gabby looked down. "I just wanted my dad to live. I already lost my mom." At that, the detective's voice softened even more. "You didn't just survive this, Gabriella. You stopped a murderer. You flew a jet. You saved a life that meant the world to you. That's something most adults couldn't do." Gabby didn't reply. She just wrapped the blanket tighter and stared at the door. Later that night, a nurse came to get her. Her father was out of surgery. He was going to be okay. The hospital room was quiet except for the soft beep of the heart monitor and the faint hum of machines. The light from the hallway cast long shadows across the sterile floor. Jackson Carter lay in bed, pale but conscious, with a bandage around his chest and an IV in his arm. He looked smaller than Gabriella had ever seen him, no longer the towering CEO who commanded rooms and ran empires. Just a man, her father, hurt but alive. Gabby sat curled up in the chair beside him, still wrapped in the same blanket from earlier, her knees tucked to her chest. She hadn't spoken much since they arrived. She hadn't cried again either. Something inside her had gone quiet. Jackson slowly turned his head to face her. His voice was hoarse. "You saved me, Gabby." She blinked, looking down at her hands. "You would have done the same." "Maybe," he whispered, "but I don't think I could have done it at 10 years old." There was silence between them. Then she said, "I was so scared. When she pulled the gun, when you got shot, I thought I was going to lose you like Mom." Jackson reached for her hand. "I should have listened to you." Gabby finally met his eyes. "Why didn't you?" His throat tightened. "Because I was trying too hard to fix myself by pretending I was okay. After your mom died, I didn't know how to be your dad and a whole person at the same time. And when Vanessa came along, I thought maybe if I looked strong, if I acted like I moved on, I could protect you from the truth that I was still broken." Gabby's voice was soft. "She never loved us." "I know," he said, eyes wet, "and I hate that it took nearly losing everything to see it. But you saw through her. You protected me when I didn't even know I needed protecting." She squeezed his hand. "I didn't want another fake mom. I just wanted you to be okay." "I will be," Armor Jackson said. "Because of you." There was a knock at the door. A nurse poked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt. There's someone here to see Gabriella." Gabby stood confused. "Who?" The nurse smiled. "Come see." In the hallway, Gabby found herself face to face with a group of people. Captain Rhodes, the voice that had guided her through the sky, two uniformed air traffic controllers who had worked with him, and a woman in a navy blue suit holding a plaque. "Insurance. We just wanted to meet the girl who did what most adults never could," the woman said. "Gabriella Carter, on behalf of the Federal Aviation Administration, we'd like to honor you for extraordinary bravery and composure under life-threatening circumstances." She handed Gabby the plaque. It read, "Certificate of Airmanship, Gabriella Carter, age 10, for unmatched courage and heroism in emergency flight command." Gabby stared at it. I don't know if I deserve this. I was just trying not to die. Captain Rhodes knelt to her level. That's exactly why you deserve it. The hallway erupted in applause. Gabby's face turned red, but for the first time in days, a smile flickered across her lips. That night, as her father slept peacefully in the hospital bed beside her, Gabriella sat looking out the window. The stars above the mountains sparkled in perfect stillness. Her body still felt sore, her mind exhausted, but her heart was steady. She had faced death. She had saved a life. And in that moment, for the first time since her mother's funeral, Gabriella Carter felt truly safe. And finally at peace. The morning sun filtered through the hospital room's tall windows, casting warm streaks across the sheets of Jackson Carter's bed. He was sitting upright now, his face still pale, but regaining its color. A small vase of flowers sat on the table beside him, along with cards from employees, board members, and even strangers from around the country. Gabriella sat at the edge of his bed, dressed in clean clothes now, her hair brushed back into a simple braid. Her eyes were tired, but something in her posture had changed. She no longer looked like a little girl hiding inside a storm. She looked like someone who had come through it and survived. The door opened and Detective Morales stepped in, holding a folder thick with documents. She gave them both a respectful nod before pulling up a chair. "She's awake," Morales said, voice low. "Vanessa regained consciousness in custody about 2 hours ago. She's been officially charged with attempted murder, hijacking, unlawful possession of a firearm, and attempted corporate fraud." Jackson inhaled slowly. "What's her story now?" "Denial," Morales said. "She claims you were suicidal and asked her to sabotage the plane to frame her if things went wrong. She says Gabriella panicked and overreacted." She rolled her eyes. "Fortunately, the evidence crushes her version of events." Gabby frowned. "So she's still lying?" "Pathological manipulators usually do," Morales replied. "But her fingerprints on the tampered components, the video you captured, and the testimony from both you and the pilot, it's all airtight. She's not going anywhere except federal prison." Jackson nodded slowly. "I want her prosecuted to the fullest extent, not because I want revenge, but because my daughter almost died. She should never see the sky again." Morales agreed. "That's already in motion. And one more thing." She pulled a folded piece of paper from the folder. "The FAA has started an internal review of Carter Air's executive oversight. They're not targeting you. They're targeting the gap she exploited." "I'll cooperate fully," Jackson said. "Carter Air has to mean safety again. It's not just a brand anymore. Not to me." After the detective left, Jackson turned to Gabby. He took her hand gently. "You know," he said with a soft smile, "when I started that company, I thought I was building something for our future. But I wasn't. I was just building to escape the past." Gabby tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been running," he said. "From losing your mom. From grief. From being a real father. Vanessa was a distraction. I thought if I moved forward fast enough, I wouldn't have to look back." She studied him carefully. "I think Mom would have wanted you to look forward. Just not like that." He laughed weakly. "She would have said it with more sarcasm, but yeah, I think you're right." He paused, then added, "From now on, no more pretending. No more boardrooms before breakfast. No more bodyguards raising you while I'm flying to Dubai." Gabby looked away. "You always said you were building the company for me." "I know," he said, "but now I want to build a life with you. Not just for you." She didn't speak at first. Then she nodded slowly. "Can we move out of the penthouse? I hate it. It's always cold." He smiled. "Deal." "And I want a dog." "Done." Gabby grinned. "And I want to learn how to really fly." Jackson's smile faded into something deeper. Pride, awe, and the hint of fear all over again. "Then I'll make sure you have the best teacher in the world." "Captain Rhodes?" "I was thinking of myself." Gabby laughed and Jackson leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. He felt pain in his body, sure, but in his heart there was relief. Real, unfamiliar peace. Not just because the nightmare was over, but because his daughter was the bravest person he'd ever known. And for the first time in a very long time, Jackson Carter was no longer afraid of what came next. 3 months later, the sky was clear over a small private airfield just outside Denver. A single prop training plane sat on the tarmac, its white and blue body gleaming in the afternoon sun. Nearby, Gabriella Carter stood in a brand new flight jacket 2 sizes too big, her hands in her pockets and a grin stretched across her face. Jackson stood behind her, arms crossed, wearing a matching jacket and a look that was equal parts pride and disbelief. "You sure you're ready for this?" he asked, watching her carefully. Gabby glanced over her shoulder, her eyes full of fire. "I landed a jet with a hole in the wing and a psycho in the cabin. I think I can handle a baby plane with 2 pedals and a brake." Jackson laughed. "Fair point." Captain Rhodes approached from the hangar, carrying a clipboard and a headset. "All right, future pilot," he said, offering her the gear. "Let's make history." Gabby took the headset with reverence and climbed into the cockpit. She looked smaller inside it, but somehow larger than life. Her fingers moved confidently over the controls, repeating pre-flight checks she'd practiced in a simulator over the past month. Jackson remained on the tarmac, watching every movement. His arm was still healing, but he'd insisted on coming, even canceling a Carter Air Summit in London. Nothing mattered more now than being here. The engine roared to life. The propeller spun. Gabby looked out the window and gave her dad a thumbs up. Rhodes climbed into the second seat beside her, giving her a nod. "All right, Gabriella, let's take her up." The plane rolled forward, slow and steady. Jackson's heart pounded as it picked up speed. The wheels lifted off the ground like a whisper, and the aircraft rose smoothly into the blue. He didn't realize he was holding his breath until they were a silhouette in the sky. Half an hour later, they touched down perfectly. Gabby jumped out first, flushed with adrenaline and smiling ear to ear. "That was amazing!" Jackson caught her in a hug before she could even unclip her helmet. "You were born for this." "I know," she said into his shoulder, voice muffled. "I finally feel like I'm home, in the air." A week after her first solo-assisted flight, Gabby was invited to speak at an aviation safety summit. She stood in front of a crowd of hundreds, pilots, engineers, regulators, and media. She wore a clean navy blazer and stood behind the podium with more confidence than many adults in the room. "My name is Gabriella Carter. I'm 10 years old. I love planes," she began, her voice echoing through the auditorium. "But 3 months ago, I didn't think I'd survive being on one. I had to choose between fear and action. I chose to fly. And because of that, my dad is still here. So I want to say this. Kids aren't too young to notice when something's wrong. And no one is too small to do something that matters." The standing ovation lasted almost 2 full minutes. Later that evening, Jackson sat beside her on the patio of their new home, a cozy mountain house with windows that faced open sky instead of skyscrapers. There were no elevators, no boardrooms, no marble lobbies, just fresh air, a fire pit, and the sound of trees whispering. Their golden retriever, Cosmo, snored at their feet. "I never thought I'd feel whole again," Jackson said, watching the stars appear one by one. "Not after your mom, not after everything that happened. But you made sure I came back." Gabby leaned her head on his shoulder. "We came back together." He nodded. "You're going to change the world one day, you know." She smiled. "No rush. First, I just want to fly." Above them, a plane blinked across the sky. It wasn't a jet, not a luxury liner or a weapon of wealth. Just a plane, ordinary and alive. Gabriella watched it in silence, then whispered, "I'm not afraid of the sky anymore." Jackson looked down at her, voice thick with emotion. "You never should have been." And for the first time in years, neither of them looked down. They only looked up. This story isn't just about a plane crash that almost happened. It's about a relationship that almost didn't survive. About a father who had everything, wealth, power, prestige, but nearly lost the only thing that mattered, the trust of his daughter. And a little girl who wasn't just a child, but the anchor, the pilot, the protector, and ultimately the reason they both made it through. The ending isn't meant to feel like a victory lap. It's a quiet exhale after a long, breathless climb. Gabriella didn't just save her father's life, she restored it. She didn't just land a plane, she brought her family back down to earth, grounded in truth and love, not status or illusions. I love that the story ends not with wealth reclaimed or revenge delivered, but with a girl looking up at the sky, not afraid of it anymore. That image says everything. Courage isn't loud. It's steady hands on shaking controls. It's speaking when no one believes you. It's choosing to fly when running would be easier. The final chapter is a beginning, a new altitude, and it reminds us sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the one that saves everyone.